but it's a bit of a case of out of the frying pan into the fire, because now the pandemic is sort of moving aside for climate change. So I really don't know how to pick them, I suppose, in that sense. But no, it's exciting stuff, I think. So I'm Shaun, anyway, Shaun Turner.
I'm Ellie Reynolds. I am currently Waste Technical Officer for Preston City Council. So I deal with sort of recycling projects, well, that's sort of my side role. And my main day-to-day job is sort of dealing with developers, planning applications for the city, that sort of thing. But yeah, happy to get involved with this project as well. So.
I'm Andrew Hodgson. I'm a chairman of a variety of things, some in the public space and some in the private space, but I won't kind of list them all. But the reason I'm here today is I'm the chairman, executive chairman of a business called Recycling Lives Limited, which is headquartered here in Preston on Essex Street. So Recycling Lives are one of the UK's largest metal and waste recycling businesses. So we basically process about just north of about 500,000 tonnes of metals per year, all of which is exported. We're the largest, for want of a better word, scrapper of cars in the UK. In fact, I'm just acquiring a business down south, and that'll mean that will be probably around 300,000 cars per year that we take off the roads and obviously repurpose all the material to. We're the largest waste electrical processor in the UK, so we run a we call it water waste electrical compliance scheme, which that's not what waste electrical compliance scheme is. So we work with a lot of the major brands, and we have an environmental services business, which basically we focus really on cardboards and plastics and the commercial waste sector. Although we do quite a bit of construction waste. But clearly, packaging waste is very important, which is quite relevant to the discussions today. The important thing about Recycling Lives for us, though, is our social purpose. So we're known, the way I phrase it is, we create more social value than economic value. So I want to create social value ahead of my profits. So last year we created £22 million worth of social value, and that comes in a number of forms. A large amount of it's through our reoffender prevention programme. So we're in 8 prison academies. My chief exec's actually up in Scotland trying to sign up 7 Scottish prison academies, where we get people onto our scheme. Our reoffending rates are about 3% against the national average about 60%, and it's quite a complex programme. It's run by our partner charity, Recycling Life Charity, which we effectively fund in its entirety. So that's a huge part of what we do. We do homeless prevention. I have actually, if you come to my office, you know where my office is. One floor of that is a homeless man residential unit. But that's really to do with people transferring out of prison. And we also, but we have a bigger residential scheme with private landlords. And we also, in partnership with Fair Share, do Fair Share for Lancashire and Cumbria. And last year we did about 8 million meals through that. So that was about £11 million worth of the social value we've created. So, and the reason I'm here is because Beth rang me one day and said, "Help, Andrew, help!" But clearly, you can see our interest is in kind of plastics, and we're just eager to. Obviously, being headquartered in Preston, we're very proud of the city and our heritage, and anything that we can do to kind of help on this agenda. We're a full circular economy business. We're just kind of passionate, and Preston is our heart, so we want to help.
Great. Well, I think, Andrew, we should have been speaking before. So I'm
that's why I came, Rick, so you as well.
So I'm Rick Hindley. I joined Podback back in the middle of May. So Podback is a new organisation set up by the major producers of coffee. So that's Nestlé and Jacobs Dairy Egberts, and they produce about 70% of the coffee pods that are put onto the market. So they were running their own individual recycling programs for pods, both aluminium and steel pods. Aluminium and plastic pods, I should say. and they got together 2 years ago actually to work on a project to facilitate pod recycling across the UK in collaboration, and they strive to get other coffee pod producers to join. So since I joined, we've had another smaller coffee pod producer join, Cafe Pod, and we're in discussions with other pod producers as well. And we're also in discussions with all the major retailers who also put pods onto the market. We aspire to make coffee pod recycling as convenient as possible to consumers, and as you can imagine, during the last 18 months, coffee pod sales have gone like that. And so ultimately we aspire to provide coffee pod recycling in partnership with local authorities to around 150 local authorities across the UK, working in partnership, and we see ourselves as pioneers in a way, in that the way that packaging is collected in the UK and funded in the future is going to change. So obviously you collect packaging at curbside at the moment, and the costs of that are picked up by the taxpayer effectively. Those costs are going to shift to packaging producers from 2025-ish.
That's right.
Now coffee pods actually aren't packaging, they're not classified as packaging, but our members have decided that they want to go ahead of the packaging regulations, and so all of the work we do with local authorities is funded by Podback and our members. Since I joined, we've launched coffee pod recycling with 5 local authorities across the UK. So we started with Cheltenham and South Derbyshire. Since then, we have launched with Chichester and just last week in Oxford, so where pods are collected on curbside alongside other materials. And we have a number of other partnerships to be launched in the next few months with more local authorities, and just to emphasise, it's done on a cost neutral basis, so we pick up all of the costs of collection, capital costs and operational costs. The pods are recycled, the aluminium ones at a company I'm sure you know well, Tandem in Congleton in Cheshire, and the plastic ones are recycled just down the road in Manchester at Roydon Plastic. So it's all UK reprocessing, very transparent, and we're very proud of what we've set up. The work that we're doing with Beth is inspired by Beth, and is very much breaking the mould in terms of what we the model that we've developed. So the primary model is local authorities, but we also have a partnership with Collect Plus, where you can get bags and you can drop off pods at Collect Plus, 6,500 Collect Plus retailers across the UK currently. And this is the first scheme where we're working effectively with the voluntary sector, and so which is an interesting trial for us, and on the face of it going really well. But what we would hope to do is to develop it into a partnership with the council, not maybe just Preston, but other councils in Lancashire, for a potentially a county-wide scheme, and be very interested to talk to Andrew about how we can collaborate as well, because I think the values that you just discussed and the type of organisation you are. Previously to joining Podback, and this is directly where we should have been talking, I've worked in the aluminium industry for the last 30 years, running for the last 14 years AluPro, which is the aluminium packaging recycling organisation. Before that I worked for Novelis, we were just down the road in Warrington, who are the biggest recycler of aluminium packaging in the UK. So why our paths haven't crossed, I don't know.
Well, because I'm a relatively new boy.
Okay.
I'm just a private investor that kind of came along to fix a business that just happened to have all the values that I kind of share. Yeah. So I'm an aerospace, offshore industry guy, would you believe?
Yeah. So I'm sure there's lots we can talk about.
Well, there's plenty we can talk about.
Yeah. I'm Sonia Phillips. Beth asked me to come here today to support her, but I'm also representing Climate Action Preston, which is a grassroots local community group. So we're all volunteers. We are part of the Friends of the Earth Climate Action Network, which is about 250 groups across the UK now, I believe. And we started in 2019. So I'm founder and chair, and we have a number of sort of small community projects that we're setting up. So we have a repair cafe that's just about to have its third event. We have a children's clothing library. These are obviously about reducing waste and reducing consumption. So we're very much
interested in the scheme and supporting it in any way we can, but we also work with the local council to lobby and to try and encourage robust climate action plans to reduce emissions as soon as possible. So yeah.
Okay, I'm Beth Balshaw, you know. I'm not used to talking, and usually Michael does that. I'm the doer, he's the talker. For obvious reasons, I'm not very confident. But we set up Plastic Free Preston Southwest a few years ago, and we were asked to take over Plastic Free Preston when the people that set it up all left university, so we took that over. Over the pandemic, we've done several events, litter picking, etc., etc. And we're very much involved with environmental in the community. One of them, so many people kept asking me where can we recycle coffee pods, and it's just stuck in my head, and I just thought I'm going to take this on and tackle it. I just like a challenge, and if I see a challenge, I normally succeed somehow. There's another, I've done quite a few things. There's another, I was a bit bothered about the bin. Preston City Council couldn't provide bins without wheels. So I've approached Glaston in Blackpool, and they've offered to donate 3 bins worth £3,000. So I can put one outside Sainsbury's, one outside Ashton, one outside Morrison. As I was saying to Sonia, and you put Ellie, I'm not too sure, I don't see it being a voluntary thing forever. I really do want Lancashire County Council and Preston City Council to take over, because it's just far too much for me to do on my own. This is why I need support from Climate Action Preston. Volunteers, you need to be done properly. This is a temporary measure. I don't envisage doing it long term, voluntary. Couldn't possibly do that.
No.
I've got other things to do and move on with. So it's up to you guys now.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, yeah. By the way, I've got interest as well, because Beth's using some of our space for consolidation purposes, which we're more than happy to provide. But I think, I share Beth's thoughts that ideally, if we could find a way of working with the council, it's better done by the authority.
Yeah, I don't see why the recycling depot at Tom Benson Way and South Ribble can't have a coffee pod collection skip or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing, depending on room at all these places, that's the sort of thing where Lancashire County Council could come in, especially if it's cost neutral. Yeah. Because the problem, they've looked at these coffee pods since we had our initial conversations, and it's not something they feel they could recycle. But that doesn't really matter if they get collected and taken away.
Shall I describe to you the model, how we work with local authorities, because we've got different...
Yeah, because the next thing I would say is that obviously there's the districts and then there's the county, and we have a Lancashire Waste partnership.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel very partnershipy. It's sort of competing interests from each one. That's the thing we've got. And I think we really need to be almost looking at it through the eyes of like what Greater Manchester would, because they control collection and disposal. And as a proper partnership, I think we need to be looking at the whole model. That's my view on it, because then we're going to make the right decisions, especially with climate change, rather than those that affect our individual budgets. So
we are talking to Greater Manchester at the moment about...
And it's much more straightforward.
Yes.
And that's how I think, especially with climate change, that's how Lancashire and all the districts should operate, really. I mean, so for example, Preston, maybe in far-flung places, why don't South Ribble collect them while they're out there anyway with their, but that sort of thing. Yeah. I think we really need to...
I think for us, I've been speaking to Duncan about this, who's the head of waste management, and it's similar to sort of batteries in the sense that if they were to be collected, they would have to be collected with something out, with say compost bins, put them on the top of the bin, and then they'd be collected within the lorry, and it's a case of where's the space for that within that, and so there's that kind of disconnect currently with the vehicles that we have.
Well, if I explain the models that we've got, then you'll see how it could possibly work, and it's early days, so we've got a number of different schemes working to see how they work. So the first, and this I think, so the first one is in Cheltenham, and they actually have curbside sort. So they have Roam-equipped vehicles with different compartments on them, and they collect. Sorry, to take a step back. So householders first of all sign up through the Podback website. So we promote it in the area, and there's a 12-week communications program that supports the introduction of the pod scheme to get people to sign up. They go to the Podback website, they put in their details, and they get sent back bags to put their pods in. Then they can put their pods out either with their dry recyclables, and they're sorted and put into a compartment on the wagon, and they're actually put into the wee compartment. But we've also equipped their RCVs with cages underneath the cages, so they can also put them out if they want when the residual is collected separately on top of the container, and it can be put in a cage under the vehicle.
And you've covered that cost?
We've paid all of the capital costs. And we've also equipped some spare vehicles just to make sure if there's any time when we're over capacity. And then in the depot we have put the same type of pallet boxes which they've got, or you've got at your premises. And then we manage all the logistics, all the costs of shipping those pods then to Tandem or to Manchester. And that works really, really well, and you're more than happy to talk to Karen, who runs that in Cheltenham. South Derbyshire is slightly different. They collect on the day that they collect their food waste, and we've again equipped the vehicles with cages underneath, and they put the bags under the cages. In the cages under the RCVs. Interestingly, I went to South Derbyshire, and the guy who runs it there said to me, "I was dead against this. We should never have done this," he said. I thought. Then we put it in. It's been so popular with residents. It's so easy. It's like it's been going for years. And again, we've picked up all of the costs for that. So that's the second model. Now the third model, which has just been introduced into Chichester, is that we've funded an electric vehicle, an electric van, in partnership with Textiles and Batteries and and that van is going around picking up textiles, batteries and small wee and pods, and that's just been introduced into Chichester. And so those are the three models that we're currently operating.
And is that going round sort of on demand?
That one is, no, I can't remember exactly the model on that one. People register on the website for the bags, and then it's going around routed based on where the registrations are. Right. So Cardiff, we're also about to introduce exactly the same scheme through the whole of Cardiff and Wolverhampton.
What about for the sort of the textiles and the battery aspect of it?
So that is done on a regular pass. So
right.
Yeah. So they I think it's done every 2 weeks.
Okay.
But I'd need to check.
So that would have to cover the whole area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'd need funding for a separate crew.
Absolutely.
For that. So you would.
Yeah.
Fund that,
Yeah.
right,
So Wolverhampton, we're funding. Chichester, it wasn't necessary, but Wolverhampton, we're funding the staff to
right.
for the vehicles as well. So we're taking this really seriously, and I think this is the forerunner of what we're going to see with packaging. So our members have said, yeah, we recognise there's cost in this, we recognise we can't do it without local authorities, we recognise that they shouldn't do it for nothing, and we will cover all of the costs of doing it.
So this is the extended producer responsibility,
yeah.
And you're just basically ahead of the curve.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And we're not waiting for government intervention, we've just said we're going to do it.
Good.
And there's nothing, obviously, there's no real alternative to the plastic pods at the moment, is there really?
Well, you have aluminium ones as well.
Yeah.
But no, people say, well, we shouldn't be using these things in the first place. My answer to that is that we're faced with reality. People are using these things, they're growing dramatically. And actually, if you look at some of the life cycle assessments, if you look at the total thing, they're actually better than instant coffee because of the amount of time you spend boiling a kettle and things like that. It's measured. And so actually the carbon impact of pods is lower, believe it or not, than getting coffee out of that you would put and then boil the kettle with far too much water in, etc., etc. So you can look at it many ways. I've worked in the aluminium industry for the last 30 years, and aluminium doing great things on recycling, so it took quite a lot to encourage me to leave because the metals. But what excited me about Podback is that this really is producers taking responsibility, and it's this sign of things to come, and it's really creative. So you can question pods, whether we should be using them or not. It's a reality that they are being used, and I think it's incumbent on the people putting them on the market to put a facility in place to recycle them. And the really exciting bit is that the aluminium is circular, so it's going back into packaging. We're just working with a plastics reprocessor who's going to invest to get the pods back into food grade plastic, so it will go back potentially into pods, so it will be totally circular. So, and this is part of the commitment. So it's not industry just doing this because it feels it needs to. It's serious investment to make this work, to make sure that pods are a circular material. And the coffee, by the way, is obviously recovered and goes to anaerobic digestion and ultimately a soil improver, so it creates energy and then goes to be a soil. So everything is.
So and on that anaerobic digestion, we have two facilities, and one particularly at Farrington Leyland Way, which was set up all singing and dancing when it was a PFI initiative, but then very quickly that didn't work properly. So we're looking at, it's going to take some big investment, but we're looking at that because food waste is another thing that's looming large. It would require. It didn't do what it was supposed to do back at the time. It's before my time here, but I heard the story about it. I think there's problems. It wasn't the right equipment. So we think there's obviously a way of bringing that back on, especially looking at the food waste coming down the line. It's going to be the problem. I think it's going to be for some is the amount of things that at people's doors, about bins and things like that. That's going to be a real issue. And again, why I think we really need to tackle it as a true partnership, because it's if you're in a small terrace and you've got all these, they're not going to want them. So what do we do with that? Do we do what they do on the continent? Do we look at some areas of communal pickups? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that if they're talking about 6 and 7 type bins, aren't they? That's going to be a big problem.
Can I just say something? I live in a terrace house and we have too many bins for our backyard.
And that's already.
Yeah. In Spain, they actually have, we have alleyways at the back of our houses. Why do you not just put them one at the end? That's what they do in Spain, one big bin.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So you'd only need one big bin to empty. You'd have it in a central location, say one in Ashton, one in Forward, one in Cotton, and do it that way.
But you'd have to keep the sort of elderly and vulnerable on a pickle, because
but you've got neighbours.
But you still cut down a lot of the. And that's what comes down to this. How would we do it across Lancashire if we were starting afresh? So geography-wise, how would we collect it? Would we do it differently?
I wouldn't necessarily do it door to door. Personally, I would have one big receptacle.
Yeah, no, and I think that could be something we could look at, because if with all them bins, bloody hell, I mean, it's bad enough now with 3.
In terms of the different waste streams that we would want to put in, like textiles and
all that sort of stuff. Right. Yeah, it's how do people store it at certain.
I visited Conwy Council District recently. They had stackable ones on the sort of the trolleys. I thought that was quite a good space saving, and they just wheeled them out.
So they're not like the standard wheelie bins?
No, they were smaller, kind of like a bit bigger than caddy size.
Boxes, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of like boxes, and they just stacked with a sort of a flap at the front.
Right.
They were quite, they wouldn't be good for, and they were collected weekly, so potentially not for your recycling, or because I've found they filled up quite quickly. But for stuff like textiles or or coffee pods, something like that, then that could be a potential option to save space. But then it comes to things like your flats. What happens with flats? Student accommodation, that would be another thing to consider. That's a massive one that I deal with. And then you come to contamination. That's another thing. What happens with the contamination side of things on
Well, obviously we try and minimise like everybody contamination, but it can be taken out of the reprocessor.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, but because we're collecting in bags, you can tend to see what you've got anyway. Because so when the lorries won't take it anyway if it's not in a bag.
Yeah.
Or the local authorities, and so typically the contamination levels are actually really low.
Quite low.
Yeah. The flats and multi-occupancy buildings is something that actually we had a meeting about yesterday, so we're going to do some trials on those as well, with communal containers.
Okay.
So because we're talking to some London boroughs, which is
Yeah.
obviously really important in London. So yeah, we're looking at all of these different options. I mean, the way it tends to work is if you were interested in exploring it, actually we work with Eunomia, so they will speak to you and then they will model it for you and develop what we call a business case, looking at the costs and work with you in terms of how collection could work for you here, what the cost would be. And then we develop a business case which says, right, this needs this amount of investment, first of all for CapEx and then on an annual OPEX. And obviously building the communications costs as well. We then take it to our finance group and they say yes or no, and we haven't turned one down yet. And obviously as we go on, we're getting more and more experience in terms of participation rates and things like that. But something like 30% of households, believe it or not, now have a machine, a coffee pod machine. It's grown that much.
Yeah, someone said they hadn't bought a coffee machine until because they couldn't recycle them, but now they can recycle them. They've got a machine.
Yeah.
So that's an incentive for yourselves as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, if you think about coffee pods, the two barriers for people, one was cost, and the second was their concern about
The environment.
actually is this a sustainable way to be making my coffee? And so our members said, well, we can. The price one is a bit more of a challenge, but we can actually solve the recycling one. And the consumer research we did said that I think it was 34% of people we spoke to said that they didn't think coffee pods. Sorry, they did. Only 34% realised that coffee pods were recyclable. And then when you asked them if there was a scheme in place, would you use it? The level of people was about 90+% who said, yeah, we would use it if it was if there was a scheme in place. So
yeah, I've been contacted by several residents asking about it. To be honest, I mean, when you first got in touch, I think I've said that.
I could hear you, sir.
When you first got in touch, I think I told you that I'd already been contacted in my first few weeks in it about coffee pods. Why can't we recycle them?
Yeah.
So there's definitely demand there, and you're obviously finding it across different parts of the country. So in terms of county council household waste recycling centres, what sort of thing do you put in place?
In household, we're not that keen on going down the household recycling centre route because we realise to make this work, it's got to be as convenient, as easy as possible. Hence, we're going for the curbside route.
Yeah.
We have agreed to trial some household waste recycling centres, and the first ones are going to be in Suffolk. But at this point, we've said we'd really prefer, our priority has to be curbside to make it as convenient as possible.
To a recycling centre.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the participation rates are going to be very low.
I would agree with that.
And for us, it would be much cheaper option.
Yeah.
But this is actually about getting the pods back, not just about making it look good. So curbside is where we want to be.
So in terms of how long does it usually take to sort of get finance sorted, get something like this in place in terms of what you've already experienced?
We can move as quickly as the authority can. I mean, we're often waiting on the authority because. So let me think. So Cardiff is a good example. That's going to launch hopefully October, and the business case went to our finance group. Would have been the end of May because it was soon after I joined, But the delay between May and October is actually about getting the vehicle and that side of it. But the contracts are all signed, and because we've got fairly standard contracts now, so we've had some delays with some councils with the legal department it's obviously we've been doing this at a particularly challenging time for councils as well, around COVID and what have you. So that's delayed us a bit. But no, we can move as quickly as you want. I mean, the funding, the finances from our side is all there, and we're actually behind where we hope to be in the budget because of COVID. So the money's not a problem.
Right.
So you'd be talking something like 12 district councils and then the two, it's 3 upper tier, isn't it? But 2 unitaries.
Yeah, bring it on. Yeah.
So
we have our target is to get to 50, to provide curbside services to 50% of the UK households in the next 3 years. And so to do that, we need to be talking to the Lancashires, the big, and the funding's all there.
Well, it sounds good from where I'm sat. Obviously, as a district council, it sounds good, and it's something we should explore.
Yeah, I think from speaking to Duncan, the main concern was cost, availability of staff, vehicles. But if that cost is all covered and that doesn't become an issue anymore, and then potentially there's even the option of using vehicles to collect other waste streams, that to me seems like
so we're in discussions with
yeah. I mean, the only other catch for me would be that we've only got 2 recycling officers in the council, and then it becomes with food waste coming as well, it becomes a lot of extra work for us.
We manage all the comms, so we do that.
Right, okay.
So we have an agency you may be aware of called Get It Sorted, who do a lot of RAPS comms, and they're doing all of our comms for us.
Right, okay.
So they manage all of that.
Sorry.
Yeah. So they manage all the comms. So we're trying to minimise the input from local authorities to make it as easy as possible.
Okay.
Just on the we and the textiles, and this is maybe where we need to have a conversation if you've got your we compliance scheme. So we're in discussions with we compliance schemes and also textile recyclers about joint ventures. So Manchester is an example, and Cardiff is also going to be a joint venture with a we compliance scheme, and also the UK's largest the textile recycler is Manchester, so the UK's largest textile recycler. So we recognise to make this work, equally from our point, cost effective, we need to be doing it with others, but equally going back to the residents, it makes it easier for them if they know that they can put these 3 or 4 different materials together and they'll go together.
But, and structurally, as you say, I mean, compliance scales, that's the pitch we're making around our plastic, our packaging, is that we think that's actually going to naturally sit alongside our compliance scheme. So we're hot on compliance, and actually plastics and cardboards at the moment, they're just treated as a waste stream. We just do commercially, but actually that's all going to merge. And I do think there's a place where smart businesses will kind of consolidate all of that together. So there's a commercial advantage to doing that. I think one thing, just because I'm aware of the landscape here, but I think being able to bring the parties together, Lancashire is a complex, structural, political structures, and I think it would be, from an economies of scale point of view, it would be better if we could kind of.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. I'm thinking like the waste partnership there. It's a good example of where we can test the water and get involved in as a unit and really look at it. I think it's all got to be looked at, because all the stuff coming down the line regarding climate change, we need to be joined up on, particularly on waste.
We need to be in it together, don't we?
Yeah, we need to plan.
Yeah.
Look from a helicopter view, and we need to plan how we're going to do it all, and I think that's what I'd like to see.
And I think from my perspective, what we're offering with pods is actually, as I say, it's a forerunner for what's coming with packaging.
Yeah.
Probably 4 years. It gives you the chance to put your toe in the water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Understand how it's going to work, and actually be in a better position to actually get what you want from the packaging compliance organisation when that's created and comes to you and says, right, we want to do this. So it gives you, for me, it ticks all of the boxes where I would want to be if I was in your position. And as you've said, and we all know that if you can add an additional service, or it's what householders want, and so it looks good for the council. And if you can do it at no cost, that's even better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I think it would be, like you say, a good time to dip our toe in the water. And certainly something I'll certainly push for that amongst partnership.
I'm more than happy to come and make a formal presentation if you want to a group.
Yeah, I think the next one is in November. So
perfect.
To just have the other one. So I can try and arrange that for you. And we can touch base.
Absolutely. And I can, if you wanted to speak to any of the other authorities that we're working with, that would be no problem. In fact, I mean, the week after next, it's not, obviously you're not in Scotland, but it's the Scottish LARAC conference, so the Local Authority Advisory Group conference, and we've got Karen, who from Cheltenham, coming to talk about her experiences with the scheme, because recognise that local authorities like to talk to each other, learn what's happening and how it works, and it's better to come from them. So Karen's actually coming up to Scotland to talk at the conference, and but she'd be more than happy, or any of them would be more than happy to do a phone call or whatever to find out how it's working and what that they really think about it. And I don't think it'd be surprised.
The main LARAC one.
Yeah, unfortunately, we'll be there, but unfortunately we were too late to get a slot to speak.
Nice.
So they couldn't get us on the agenda. So we are talking in Wales and Scotland, but couldn't get on the national one. But I'll be there, so I can introduce you to Karen and the other local authorities who we're working with. Yeah,
great,
fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'll certainly I'll arrange that you could, because that'd be a good space to do it where you've got the full county buy-in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll get that sorted.
Fantastic. But in the meantime, for us, it's all about how we can support Beth and her what she's doing, which is, in my view, fantastic.
Yeah, we've got some bins in Longbridge, and we've just put them in Lytham, outside the station. They're expecting me to pick them up. It's just like, I'm going to get more volunteers. I can't do it all on my own.
It's a huge commitment.
And I do separate them from the aluminium to the plastic.
I think that's what I mentioned to you on the phone, was that if we were to go down the drop-off point route, I didn't want you to sort of overface yourself, because you were talking about, like,
Michael was here then. Not me.
Yeah, it's even worse now.
So 8 or 9 drop-off points, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, I said to them in Lytham, they don't seem to get the head. They said, but I'm a... Oh, it's Michael's phone. I went up to bam. They don't seem to get that I'm a volunteer too. That they were all volunteers here, and I'm thinking, well, I am too. My petrol, whatever. I'm doing it, because it's what I want to do in Preston. But I can't be expected to go to Longbridge and go up to Lytham. I'm meeting a lady from Longbridge tomorrow. I've sent Karen Buckley a message, but they don't seem to get the concept. Maybe you can talk to her. I met her in Mallorca. I took her out on my boat with her husband.
Yeah, you said,
Yeah. I'm trying to explain to them, but see the bigger picture. But at the moment, they're playing. I don't know. They just seem to. They're expecting me to do it all, and I'm just not. I can't be everywhere at once.
And I think the solution is curbside. I think long term, where then it comes part of the furniture, if you will.
But the thing is, Beth, because if you need help on stuff like that, you just give me a call.
Yeah.
I have got 400 people working here.
Oh, thank you.
And we make it, and everybody's got...
All I see my role in this is just getting the ball rolling.
Yeah. No, exactly. It wouldn't be long-term sustainable. Everybody who works for me gets 3 days community volunteering as part of it. So So they're always looking for volunteering
Fantastic.
tasks in any case.
That'd be
And I
nice.
have 100 and something vehicles running around
Wonderful.
this region. So, you know, if there's a short-term fix, we'll always
Yeah.
find a way of helping, but that wouldn't be sustainable long-term. You know, because we want to kind of spread
That'd be really
spread
cool.
our capacity, but
I'll go
understand
out with the lad.
Well, exactly. Everybody wants to go out on our fair share run, to be honest. I'm from Cumbria, and it's the fair share van run into Cumbria that everybody wants to be on because it's lovely.
Yeah. It's all right driving north, isn't it?
Well, it is. Well, actually, you end up with places like Whitehaven and Workington, and everyone was like, really? And I was like, well, I am from Workington. In fact, the food bank is right opposite my mum and dad's house. So, yeah, I mean, if there's anything in the short term that, you know, don't ever leave things. I mean, they're coming back down to our unit here in any case, aren't they?
I've got a bit of a backlog at the moment. They're in my garden. I've got my wheelie bin full of coffee buds. I've got to sort those out. I've got the other wheelie bin half full. Because I've been on holiday for 2 weeks. We've got the Magnums, and I knew that I got those in place, so that was a big relief. I've been away for 2 weeks, talking my boat out. Then obviously 10 days isolation, and then this just happened to Michael. I'm just completely thrown. I think, my God, you know, what more could go wrong?
You're really strong, by the way. I can't believe you've held yourself.
Well, the first 2
together.
days, it absolutely, I just wanted to be on my own. I just didn't want anyone to come around. I had everyone coming around, but I just wanted to be on my own. I got a sleeping bag from out there. In the middle of the night, I couldn't sleep. Got in a sleeping bag, put the gas fire on, and just slept on the sofa. It was the only way I could get to sleep. I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm just thinking, I think about Michael every second. I don't want to talk too much, but I just want to carry on the work. I just want to carry on the work that we're doing together.
Well, look,
I think that's the thing, isn't it,
Yeah.
Beth? You know, we're here to create Michael's legacy, aren't we? You know, and the fantastic work that's gone on today. We'll make sure that
I
happens.
don't know whether you were aware of it in line for an award for what you've done in the community.
Yeah, I know.
For BBC Radio Lancashire, which was in September.
Yeah.
I'd actually, just before I went away, I did a video of him, give to the radio BBC, and I do lots of videos. I'm not a pro, but I do lots of videos for Plastic Food Preston to try and get people to see how interesting, you know, what could be cool stuff, you know, good fun, companionship, friends, and get more and more people involved. And you know, quite some time to do these videos, and I put nice music to them. And I said to Michael before, and if I can't do a video for my husband, it's a poor do. So I stayed up all night doing this video for him. Then, the day before we went, travellers came to Haslam Park, and they caused chaos. And they left such a mess when they went. And Michael and I went down the following on the Saturday before I flew. And I said to Michael, come on, the council have been and gone by now, but we're going to give them a hand. When we got there, nobody had been. So between me and Michael, we did it ourselves. I couldn't appeal out on Facebook. We definitely volunteered. One person turned up. But we actually cleared the whole of Ashton Park together in 4 hours. And then the council came along on Monday, but I just couldn't believe we were doing it. And then obviously I flew on Sunday, and then the rest, blah, blah, blah. But we did everything together, and it was really, really, very much, you know, don't you? Much into the environment. Our backyard full of trees, which I'm going to donate to the park.
well, it was really well thought of.
Yeah.
When we heard about it, I know my colleagues, we were on a WhatsApp group, and so many messages about what a great bloke he was.
Oh,
Great.
it's a great picture. Yeah.
And he was always smiling.
I just can't believe he's
He
gone.
was always so enthusiastic as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to take it? Will I miss him?
Yeah.
But I just want to carry on the good work. I teach, you know, I talk to him and carry on. We're meant to be together, and there's a reason why he's gone. I'm not too sure yet why, but I'm sure he's with me.
Yeah, well, the partnership will continue. He'll be guiding you from above.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's. I'll commit to get you to come to the Waste Partnership.
Yep.
If that's okay with you.
Absolutely, love to. Yeah.
Like I say, that's at some point in November, but I'll get that arranged, and then you can speak to. You'll have the right people in the room then to bring it on. I'll introduce you in, and I'll certainly support the scheme ahead of you then talking about it. But obviously,
Yeah.
You can explain the different models that.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, show how it works.
Right, well,
And we'll have
something like
each month we're getting more data, obviously, as the schemes develop and mature. But yeah, so far, very encouraging in terms of levels of participation, etc.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
I mean, I'll have a chat to my head of department.
Yeah, brilliant. And if you want to chat to any of the others that are in the meantime that are doing it, Cheltenham, South Lancashire, whatever, just let me know and we can organise that.
Yeah.
And apologies, I haven't got a card, but it's on my contact details
Yeah.
are on the email, I think.
Got,
Yeah.
got cards
Oh, I
if
can
you'd
drop
like
you. What I'll do actually, I'll drop you, because we've got a basic sort of slide deck which talks through what we do and what have you, so I can send that through so you can all
Yeah, that'd
do
be
that
useful.
anyway as a follow-up. So
That'd definitely be useful.
brilliant, yeah, because I've only joined in May and we've all been in lockdown and really not going out, not got any cards yet. But yeah, things are starting to open up a bit.
No, the bit for me there is as well is that it's the testing it as well as a Lancashire wide sort of
Yeah.
model. I think would be brilliant.
Yeah.
Just to it might help us commit to more stuff too.
How many local authorities are there in the partnership? Is it?
So, it's. I think it's I think there's just a couple of districts that aren't. I think. Is that right? Do you know?
I'm not sure myself.
Somebody chaired one meeting,
Yeah.
and I've got a feeling that there's a couple that aren't. I think West
Okay.
Lancs maybe.
I haven't been along to one myself.
No.
Yeah. No, okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I'll find that out for you.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
thank you
Have
for
you all got each
facilitating
other's
this.
email addresses?
I think so.
Yeah, it's
we're all
on the email. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
No, apparently, I'll be meeting soon with the Merseyside Waste Partnership. Have you had some dealings with them?
That interesting. Not directly. We had an inquiry from somebody at Merseyside who had been speaking to South Derbyshire, and so Eunomia provided them with some information, but as yet we've not heard anything back from them. So again, we welcome the opportunity to talk to Merseyside. So if you'd like to introduce me, fantastic, directly.
Right. Well, when I speak to them,
Yeah.
because they've gone down that partnership model some years ago,
Yeah.
and I think there was obviously teething trouble at first, and I don't think it even still now is ever perfect, but apparently it's better than what it was before. So I want to learn more.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. The way we need to achieve our objective is by grouping local authorities together, working together. And so Lancashire Waste Partnership, Merseyside, say we're talking to Manchester, we're talking to Birmingham, and that's how you get economies of scale, and it really starts to have an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Great. Really
Well,
good.
That's good. Thank you.
well done, Beth.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Facilitating.
Thank
See,
you for
this
making
is
it happen.
all about making it happen. And
Networking.
yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Beth.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all turning up. It's amazing we got you all together.
Yeah. And thank you for the tour of the impressive building.
Yeah, I mean there's another one. Their committee room. It's quite posh. It's a smaller version of that. But, look how empty it is, though.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. So is what's the policy about people coming back?
Well, it's just at the moment it is as many people that can work at home for the time being,
Yeah.
and it'll be up for review beyond that. Obviously, it's a really, what do you do? We've got people that can work from home. We've got people that can't. So I don't know. I mean, you've got this massive
Yeah.
building.
Yeah. The costs of the building.
Upstairs, I mean, you've got what's called the exchange, which a lot of money was spent on that, and that's massive. It's good. People come and hire it and stuff. But as it is at the moment, I don't know. There's not going to be the same amount of staff back here. The cafe downstairs has been shut ever since COVID, and that was always a bustling place.
Yeah. I've been in a couple of times.
Yeah.
We have a cafe at Essex Street because we have a couple of guys who both ex street holders guys who one of them just happened to be a chef, so we opened a community cafe. A nightmare. As soon as COVID came, and we've got nobody in our offices, and that would provide the But some of the local businesses around that area of Deepdale are starting to reach out now and say, can we do breakfast? So we've started to introduce it back again, but it's
Yeah.